as I've said to you before, longtime fan. So I've got some irritating questions that are on the, he's been listening to this guy for way too long. But before I do all that, you're doing fine tonight?
I feel good. How about you?
Nonstop, but good. So
Yeah.
congrats on getting Hi, My Name is Jonny, the 25th anniversary edition out. How long was that in the works for?
Last summer during the pandemic, I was busy because I was just trying to occupy myself and not go stir crazy. And, like everyone else, I couldn't take my eyes off the news. And it was just, after a while, it's just maddening. I mean, not after a while. I mean, it's like immediately like maddening and stressful. I mean, you were there. You remember last summer.
Yeah.
So I made a record early in the year. I ended up making a record that came out later in the year. I did some videos. I got a couple of artists I really like to do some remixes. And at one point I was like, I should release this on vinyl because I always wanted to come out on vinyl. It was released in 1996 when sometimes records were released on vinyl, but it was real rare back then.
Yes.
And I don't know, it was just, 20th anniversary, and I thought it'd be fun to put it out.
Yeah, it's one of those albums that I've listened to a lot of times, but I actually don't know much about besides I like it. That's you singing and playing everything on it. But it's not one of those albums where there was like an oral history where all these people told the story about it and we knew what really happened. So can I ask you something?
Because no one was there, it was just me.
Yeah, well, true. But there have been some amazing albums over the years that was pretty much one guy, and the story of it actually did get out there. In your case, was the album A&R'd heavily? And by that, I mean, the label was giving you a lot of notes, or did they just let you do it?
It's funny, man. Like, I was 21. I was 20 when I met Rick Rubin, 21 when I signed and made the record, and I was 22 when it came out. So I was really young. And obviously that was my first experience with the music industry and major labels. And, I grew up in Chicago where there was everyone I knew was in a band. So like everyone, like there's a lot of people that got signed, especially in that era from Chicago, right after the Urge Overkill, Liz Phair, Pumpkins boom. So I capitalized, I was like part of that, I guess, in retrospect. But so anyway, so I've heard lots of stories, lots of horror stories from my friends with their record deals. And it's sort of like when you've never done anything before, you have no idea whether this is normal or like I just totally lucked out and hit a grand slam hooking up with someone like Rick Rubin, who is just an extraordinary person and an extraordinary businessman and artist and producer. And yeah, I mean, I sent them a couple cassettes. That's what we were doing back then. It's like, sounds great. Keep going. Excited to hear more. It was literally like that. I recorded 17 tunes in 3 months, which took a while. I never usually worked that slowly, but I was, I was a kid and I'd only recorded on cassette 4 tracks and 8 tracks. And I bought what was then like a really, hot piece of gear, the Tascam DA88. So basically like an ADAT, same thing. And, a handful of good mics. And I'd never mic'd a drum set before, I would just get like a Radio Shack mic and put it in front of anything and it would sound good on a cassette 4-track. So it was different. It was a bit of a learning curve, and I was nervous, the only pressure was just from me, just because like, oh, I'm on a major label now, this better be good, or what I mean, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. And it was also the third time I was recording a lot of the songs. So to be perfectly honest, I really had to like kind of talk myself into recording them. So I was like, fuck, I already did these like twice. Like, I don't want to do a third time. You know what I mean? Like I get bored really easily. And at that point, I mean, most of those songs were written when I was like 18. Like I was a teenager, 18, 19. I think In My Mind and Uh-Oh were written when I was 20, maybe. So I was a kid when I wrote it, but 2 or 3 years later, it's like, oh. But you know, after I got going, it's like, all right, you know, I got super enthusiastic and really enjoyed it, and like, and I love those tunes. It just took a little bit to get back in the headspace of, you know, you always want to be moving on and moving forward and progressing and trying new
Yeah.
stuff. And for me, it took me a while to realize this, but like I really like the feeling of discovery, of trying new things, and um, you know, I mean, those songs for me, I'm always trying to write a good song, but like, what does that even mean? Good song? It's like for me, it's like it's got to be, you know, there's definitely a certain amount of craft that's got to go into it to make it, you know, float on water or whatever. But like, um, I uh, I like to try stuff that like I feel like I'm not supposed to do for whatever reason. Like maybe some like self judgment or like, oh, I can't do that. That's like what like cool guys. That's what tough guys. I was thinking, you know, I was really into like Social Distortion and the Ramones, and like I love this music. But you know, as a kid, I was like, I can't possibly be like anywhere as cool as them. Like, you know, no, I'm not. That's not allowed. And after a while, it's like, fuck that. Like, I want to play this music, you know. So it's like my version of that, you know. I mean,
Yeah.
I was never really like a punk, but like, I don't think I was ever really anything. I just love all sorts of different music, and you know, I really identified with, you know, Sex Pistols and Social Distortion and Ramones and, you know, Butthole Surfers and all these bands I really love. But I also really love, you know, like Nick Lowe and Dave Edmunds and Elvis Costello and Rockpile and, you know, the Beatles and all, you know, lots of melody. Um, I think, I don't know. I mean, I think I was reading Quincy Jones's autobiography a few years ago, and he had some really interesting things to say. It was like, you can, as a musician, you can grow in so many different ways and try all these different paths, but at your core, everyone has like a core identity.
Hmm.
Um, and I don't know. Um, I just really love melody. And it's not even that I love it. I think I'm just wired for it. Like I can't. It's just sort of like what I think it's at the core of what I do. For some, I don't know why. Like it shouldn't matter, but like, I really can't stand like pop or power pop or like whatever terms. Or you know, to me, it's just like I love rock music and melody and all sorts of things. Like there's so many elements of like texture and mood and atmosphere.
Yeah.
You know, whether it's Dave Edmunds or whether it's like Susie and the Banshees or whatever. You know,
Yeah.
um, and I
Well,
love all, you know, like I love Thelonious Monk and, you know, lots of things that aren't strictly considered rock music, whatever, but there's just like an attitude of just super direct and super bold and just people that are totally unique and like unmistakably themselves. In fact, Monk had a great quote: "A genius is somebody who is most like themselves," which I thought was a really cool way to think about it.
yeah.
Instead of this untouchable, like godlike, like oh, you know, it's just like the more you're just like truly yourself and you know, no artifice, you know, and not trying to impress people and just like playing like a kid, like where you just love it and it's just what truly moves you. It's actually pretty rare in any aspect of life.
Yeah. Well, the name that came up before, Rick Rubin, he grew up in the town where I live. Never encountered him. I think the vibe I get is if you're cool with Rick, you're cool with Rick for life, and that's a very interesting kind of thing. But the consistent thing that I hear between all the projects that Rick did, from investing in a professional wrestling company to producing records to running record labels, is that he always had a hands-off approach as long as he trusted you and he liked it. So it's good to hear that it was not an A&R ish overdone project where they're like, oh, well, Jonny,
No,
you need
not
to
even
redo this.
remotely. It was the polar opposite. I've heard stories from my friends' bands, like I was telling you, where it's just like, you know, it's like a bad movie. But no, all I ever got from Rick and from Mark Geiger and from everybody at that label was just total enthusiasm and support and money and just, you know, just green lights. Um, yeah. Yeah, that would be horrible. And
Well,
he like and one thing I noticed too from working with him years later, you know, as a session musician on records that he was producing, he he just hires the right people. Like he knows how to choose the right people and let them do what they do. And he'll give direction, but it's not that often. And when he does give direction, it's really specific and it's really articulate. And I used to work for Audio Slave. That was my day job at one point. It was like an in-town tech. I would like tune their guitars and set stuff up and record their rehearsals and stuff like that. So I was there every day when they were doing pre-production for Out of Exile, their second record. And he's really articulate with taking apart songs and putting them back together just to try it, just to see what happens. And, you know, maybe it comes back to, uh, you know, how it was when it first started, but just to see, take it apart and see what you can do. And he's so much more articulate than so many musicians that I've worked with. And I think he plays a little guitar, but he's not really a musician. But, you know, there's a language, you know, bridge, turnaround, whatever, you know, like all these little terms that are just helpful to be able to communicate. Um, that's it. He just really knows what he likes and he hires the right people and he's very articulate and, you know, I remember he would always say you can't rush the sauce. You know, like when he would get pressure from, you know, other people's labels or managers, whatever,
Yeah.
can't
Well,
rush the sauce.
that sounds like the Goodfellas scene where they're making the sauce right before they get busted, where he's just having them stir the sauce for hours and hours and hours.
Yeah.
I wonder if that's where he got it from. But
No, that was a commercial back in the 80s. I think it was Ragu,
Ronzoni or Ragu, it sounds.
something like that.
Well, looking back at something for 25 years ago, I got started doing interviews, although it doesn't show, when I was 16, 17. And I recently discovered a bunch of those tapes, and it's bad. It's really,
Yeah.
really bad. I scripted my questions, the uhs and the ahs. I way over complimented. I wasn't actively listening.
Yeah.
So listening back to all that, unless it was with somebody like a David Lee Roth, I just like don't digitize that.
Did you interview him?
Happened. Yeah, in 03.
Oh, when?
That happened in 03. It's going to come out to the DLR cast in the next week or so. It's not bad, but it's not good.
Why? He's Dave, man. Was he not
Yeah,
on
but
that day?
it's me asking the questions, and
Oh, okay.
yeah, but it's decent. It's a weirdo period of his life where he's not in Van Halen. He's not really doing new music. He doesn't have the radio show yet.
Wait, was this around oh wait, I'm trying to remember the name of it. The you know, the Mojo Dojo tape?
Yes, it was. This is that era. That was called
Oh,
No
yeah,
Holds
that's a little
Barbecue.
brutal. But I love Dave. I love all aspects.
I do too. And listening back to these tapes, I'm bad. I just did not have it. I could
Yeah.
not hold conversations. But in your case, looking back 25 years later, do you listen to those songs and go, I was good? Or did you go, man, I didn't know X, Y, and Z yet?
I mean, I guess like a little bit of both. Like technical stuff, I'll think, you know, it doesn't bother me. It would bother me like maybe a few years after that record, but so long ago, it's like looking at your, you know, baby photos or like you from junior high. It's just kind of adorable now, you know. And just to see how far I've come in certain ways, and in how certain ways I don't feel like I've changed at all. And yeah, I mean, it's weird. Like I love that a lot of people really have fond feelings for that record. Like that's really thrilling to me. Um, and so, but in some ways, it's so long ago that I don't really feel that connected to the songs. Some of them do, like, you know, and I'll play them sometimes and like really enjoy it. But a lot of them, I like hearing it, and I love that people are into it. But I just don't really feel that connected to some of the music. It feels
Yeah.
like a long time ago. But no, I'm super proud of that record, and you know, I got a lot of fond memories attached to it.
Well, another thing I hear from artists who've been doing it for 30 years, Has it been 30 years?
No, that record's
Almost 30.
96.
But I mean, for you personally, because you were doing it a few years before that.
I mean, I was like self-releasing cassette tapes.
Yeah.
Starting in 91. So that, I guess that was 30 years. Wow.
Yeah, we're on the verge of 30 years. When I speak with songwriters who have that much of a history, usually I'll hear something like, well, I was writing everything through another person's perspective because I didn't have any life experience at that point. And it wasn't that I started writing personally until I was, say, 35 or something like that. Is there anything like that for you?
No, I mean, there's some of the songs like Love, Lovely Love. That was, to me, that was like an exercise. That was more like a craft thing. Like it wasn't about a girl in particular or anything. It was just like, I mean, musically, it's Whole Wide World. And the ending is literally a Paul Westerberg song that I stole.
Yeah.
Silver Naked Ladies from his first solo record. And the solo is like Nowhere Man, or like, like a James Honeyman Scott Kid Pretender solo. And the lyrics are just like, I still love early 60s and late 50s, early rock and roll. But like back then I was really obsessed with it and I really loved it. So, like the lyrics to me are very like, Gene Pitney or Everly Brothers. And the title came from this Sandra Bernhardt book that I gotten out of the library called Love, Love, Love. And I was like, cool, I was really into her. And so that song was just sort of like, let's put some cool stuff together and whatever. But like in my mind, like that was very confessional and personal. And Evil Scurvy Love, that was about a girl I was seeing when I was 19. Gone Away was about that same girl. And like Down Low, that was very kind of confessional, kind of like a little surreal. Even A Half Mind, yeah, I mean, most of the songs to me are fairly personal, even if on the surface they might be just sort of like cool rock songs or whatever.
That's cool to hear, because an example, I remember being a little heartbroken. I don't know if that's the right word, but I was reading the liner notes of some best of the Cars, some greatest hits thing, and Rick Ocasek is saying, yeah, not one song by the Cars was about anything that I ever went through. They was just made up. And you go,
that's not surprising though. I mean, that's part of their charm, is just like, are they humans? Or like him at least. Like that, those records are amazing. And that kind of music, like, it doesn't need to be personal. You know what I mean? Like every kind of music's got a usage, just, but I like all sorts of stuff. So like, it's not even a conscious thing. It just sort of comes through, like singer, songwriter,
yeah,
pop music, rock and roll, punk, whatever. Just kind of, that's to me one of the most interesting things about writing and playing music. And, if you just kind of let it naturally happen, because I've, like anybody, like I've like written songs that were super contrived and just, whether it was an experiment or whether it was just a period I was going through or whatever. And those don't really resonate and don't, they're fine, whatever. It's just sort of like, it's no big deal. But the ones that really seem to fly are the ones where it just sort of happens. And it's like only in retrospect you can say, well, I did this like, the way I described love, lovely love. It was just like, I wasn't thinking all those steps. It was just sort of like, it's like in the kitchen, just cooking, you just grab whatever elements are at hand and it just sort of happens. It's only in retrospect, you're like, oh yeah, that title totally came from that book or whatever,
Got it. Did you know that love, why can't I talk to that? Love.
A hard one. Say it 14 times backwards.
Did you know that was a single when you'd written it?
I mean, I was always trying to write songs that to me were hits, and even still, just like, like that's a hit, and not like, especially these days, not literally like, I think this is going to be, number one on the Billboard Hot 100.
Yeah.
Because like, who knows? But just to me, like, back then it's like, I just wanted to write something that was as thrilling to me as Nirvana or The Replacements or Rockpile or whoever. you know? Yeah, I knew it was like super catchy and like, I was really excited about it. But that was the first batch of songs. I mean, I started writing when I was 10. I started playing ukulele when I was 9 and guitar when I was 10. I started immediately writing songs and then got kind of sidetracked. I don't know if it was sidetracked, but I stopped writing songs for a few years and got really into guitar players, like Jimi Hendrix and Stevie Ray Vaughan and Jimmy Vaughan and John Scofield and John Abercrombie and Mike Stern, like like all this instrumental stuff. And then when I was 15 or 16, I heard the Replacements, and like it just, oh, that was just like, okay, that's what I want to do. It just completely blew my mind. And I got so, that was just my band,
Mhm.
and then when Nirvana hit, it was like even more so. Just like, damn, it's so strange now, like 30 years later, because like the world is so different, the culture's so different, music's so different, but it was so unbelievable. It's hard to describe to people. I mean, you can describe it, but it still doesn't make that much sense. Just like, obviously there was no internet, but all you really had was MTV, radio, college radio, commercial radio, college radio, Rolling Stone, musician, like a handful of magazines, and there was the underground too. But it was really like, in one way, it was kind of fun because it was just like everyone was sort of part of everything, and you were all in on it, and you couldn't avoid a Tom Petty song even if you wanted to, or
Right.
whatever. Like, you'd hear the same songs over and over again all the time. And it's just not like that anymore. But like, I remember very clearly, like, oh, like this year's like, oh God, like Paula Abdul again, like Warrant, oh God, and then all of a sudden, out comes Nirvana. It's like, whoa, like, what is this? And I was young, like I knew a lot of, like a fair amount of punk and, you know, underground stuff. Like, I love the Butthole Surfers and,
Yeah.
but like, I didn't really know about the Buzzcocks, and I didn't know about Killing Joke and, all these different bands that, you can tell were elements. So to me, I wonder about that sometimes. Like, if I'd been a few years older, if I'd have been as blown away, um, I mean, probably, maybe just in a different way. But for me, it was so revelatory, and just I never understood at the time, like, why people would say, it was angsty and full of anger. Like, to me, it was just the most joyous music I'd ever heard, and including like the Beatles and the Who and the Replacements and like all these bands that I just worshipped. Like, when I heard Nirvana, it was just like I just played it over and over and over and over and over and over. I was just so massively in love with it. And anyway, that's what I was trying to do, writing my own songs, just something that, I just really, really loved and just wanted to hear over and over again. That's part of why I always loved like minute and a half to 2.5 minute songs.
Right.
When a song's like 4 or 5 minutes, even if it's like satisfying or whatever, even if you love it, it's sort of like, okay, let's move on. But like when it's a minute and a half and you love it, it's like, damn, it's too short. Like, you want to hear it again.
Yeah. Yeah.
Again.
That reminds me, I got to cut you off there. That reminds me when I was doing an interview with the comedian Fred Stoller. Do you know who he is?
Yeah, totally.
And back then I used to ask people, hey, well, so what's the last concert that you saw? And I won't do the voice impression of him, but he goes, I don't really go to concerts because there's nothing I'd want to do for 2 hours. And then I was thinking about it, like, there's nothing I'd want to do for 2 hours. When you boil down to it, there's almost nothing you actually would want to do for 2 hours when you think about it. And I became more accustomed to concise music. What you just said totally hits a chord with me, where minute and a half is too short. So like a lot of those great Misfits songs are like a minute 40.
Oh yeah, totally.
If it could be 2.5, that'd be perfect.
I mean, I like just anything that's really great. I saw the Swans maybe, I don't know, 4 or 5, 6 years ago, and their first song was 45 minutes. And
Yeah,
it was mesmerizing. It was unfucking believable. And it was also the loudest concert I've ever been to. And
that's
I've
the
been to loud
word.
ass concerts, but it was painful. Like, I had to like do that almost the entire time, which I never do. Um, but so that was, maximalist, but it was like truly extraordinary. It was like watching like an Aztec ritual, or like being inside of a plane's engine taking off. It was unbelievable. So like, whatever works, like I also like, I approach stuff as, I guess, like a fan, like what do I want to hear? And a lot of times just like as a listener, it's like, damn, like why doesn't anyone write songs like so and so anymore? Like where are records like that? Or like why is everything, too long or whatever. So like, well, why don't you stop complaining and just do it? So that's what I do, or I try to.
The old cliche of "Don't bore us, get to the chorus."
Yeah.
Something like that. So I know that you have this re-release of Hi, My Name Is Jonny. I know that you had an album last year. I know that there was the documentary about you. Is there anything up and coming, or are you taking a break? Because that's a lot of output for a short period of time.
I got a bunch of songs. I wrote a bunch of new songs that I'm really excited about. I recorded and mixed a new song that I'm going to release as a standalone single next month.
Hmm.
It's called People Are Lonely, Horny, Angry, and Depressed. It's a good pandemic anthem. I
Yeah.
actually wrote it 3 years ago in my head on a Spirit Airlines flight. And if you've ever been on a Spirit Airlines flight, you'd probably write the same song.
Yeah.
But it's really like the sentiment is very much in keeping with the last year. So I want to release it before everyone gets too happy again. It's actually like a very like perky, like cool, like kind of Elvis Costello, like up
Sure.
romp. So I mean, right now, like I was telling you before the cameras started rolling, I'm moving back to New York, so I'm just totally consumed with that right now. So I'd say like probably in a month when I get settled, um, I'm gonna start. I'll start recording somehow. Like, yeah, I'm gonna make another record this year. I don't think I'm gonna do vinyl again. It's just too expensive.
Yes.
I love having vinyl, but it's just really, really, really expensive. Um, and that's it. We'll see what happens.
It's the kind of deal where you're going to create no matter what. You're going to see what happens, but you're not worried things are going to fall into place.
Worried about what?
Well, okay, let me give an example. Earlier today, I was talking with a friend who played drums in a band that was on Jimmy Kimmel Live a week ago, like a pretty big band, but he's a hired
Yeah.
gun guy. And before all this happened, he was on the road 200 days a year, probably.
Yeah.
Like that, gig to gig to gig. Okay, that tour is over. This tour, this tour, this tour. And I'm off the road. I'll do session. So it went from working nonstop to, oh, nothing's going on. So
Oh yeah.
it's about that performance that he did on Jimmy Kimmel Live. He goes, yeah, we wrapped that record in December 2019.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, and we also wrapped this record around December 2019. Like, oh, okay. So are you touring this summer?
Me?
No, him.
Oh yeah.
Are
Yeah,
you touring
but
this
who
summer?
knows?
I don't know.
I
Are you
mean,
worried about it? No.
I want to get back to Belgium as soon as I can, as soon as possible. Because that movie seemed to strike a chord with a lot of people, which was real cool. So yeah, I have no idea what this year holds. I'm just gonna keep writing and record. Yeah, we'll see what happens. I got an engineer friend and a drummer friend who's playing I really love. So I would love to. I mean, the last several records I've made have been on my laptop, and the last, I think, 2 or 3 have been like program drums, which I love. But I get, like I said, like I get bored easily, and I like to try to switch stuff up. And excuse me, the tough part is just like it's just costs a lot of money. It's like recording a studio, and it's just good to have friends you can pull favors and get deals. So I don't know. We'll see what happens, and I'll definitely put out some more music this year. I mean, that single is going to come out next month, but there'll definitely be a full length record before the end of the year. I'm guessing it'll probably only be digital. Do people buy CDs anymore?
Of a certain age or demographic, they do, because they believe, hey, I'm supporting the artist, not realizing the economics. Well, it is what it is. They don't understand things like recoupment and distribution fees. But Yeah, I find that people between the ages of say 35 and 55 still buy CDs.
Yeah. Well, maybe I'll make one for them.
Maybe. But I think it's an interesting career you have, not just because the quality of the material has always been consistent, not just because you've always been self-sufficient where, yeah, I'm going to play all the instruments and produce it. You've also adapted with the times of being DIY in terms of being your own label when you had to. And you've kind of thrived, in my opinion, doing that kind of thing where you didn't kind of get on your hands and knees going, I need another major label or else I can't make an album.
Well, I did that for a long time. I was, in that weird, well, I guess it's weird now too, like weirder than ever. But like, the like, I don't know, early 2000s, like mid 2000s, like, before streaming came on and it was still all about labels. Spent so many years like just mailing out package after package after package and just like, and this would be before even, I think before MP3s were really a big thing. So you had to like spend money and like print up CDs and blah, 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 blah. So after a few years, it's like, fuck this, man. Like, I just want to make music. And like, it's not just a status thing to be on a label. Like, it's really incredibly helpful to have someone paying. I mean, even if it's a couple of grand, even if it's, by label standards, not that much money, like for just a independent musician, just like a regular human, it's just like, it costs a lot of money to just like print up a record or make a record. So anyway, but like, whatever, like, this is what I do. Like, I love making music and I love making records. I'm not going to stop, so you just find whatever way you can make it work, and like, I learned that from David Lynch. I'm a huge David Lynch fan. Like, I'm not just his movies, but his music and just his way of thinking and creating. Like, I read and listen to tons of interviews over the years. And one of the things that keeps coming back is like, you just do your work and be as true to the work as possible. And you work within whatever limitations you have, whether it's materials or time or budget, and you just find a way to make it work. And there was a period of my life where that didn't make any sense to me. And then finally, I don't know if it clicked all of a sudden, but it was like, okay, yeah, I want to make records. Like, I make records, and, technology caught up too. Like, Pro Tools is really cheap comparatively to a studio, get some good mics. I know how to get a guitar sound, and, there's also some music I love. So it's like, shit, it doesn't have to be like a drummer or me or playing drums or somebody else, because that's really costly. And going into a studio, whatever, like, I can program drums. Like, I love Depeche Mode and Nine Inch Nails and, to Rudy Collum or whoever, it's like, so like, let me mix all this stuff together. And to me, like, it's a challenge, and it's like, how can I make music that to me is still rock music, but not live musicians or maybe not live drums. And I also like collaborating a lot. Like, the last record, I had Jane Wiedlin from the Go-Go's sing, and she did an incredible job. Did like a 7-part harmony that was totally out of left field. Kevin Haskins, drummer from Bauhaus and Love and Rockets, Tones on Tail. He's a friend from when I lived in LA, and he played on a couple of records ago. And that's really thrilling to me. Or Mark Lanigan, like, all these different people that have been able to, convinced to play on the records. Not even convinced, like, it's like really flattering too. Just like, it's like, you want to play with good people and people that are better than you. And, and it's really encouraging to have people that are heroes to me, like, it's not even like a nod of approval. It's just like, oh yeah, I'm into this. Like, I'll do that. It's like, cool.
And that's how you got your record deal in the first place, as the story goes, using the information service. And the guy took risks. That's always to be admired.
Well, gotta take a risk.
Well, my last on the record question for you is a left field one. And that's, what TV show or shows should we be watching?
Oh, it's easy. Toast of London. Do you know it?
No, what's Toast of London?
Do you know Matt Berry?
Yeah, great comic.
I love Matt Berry. I only I kind of knew of him, just heard his name for a bunch of years, but for some reason, I forget. Oh yeah, there's a Facebook friend who she's an insane fan and posts stuff on him all the time. So I started checking it out, and he's got so many incredible, like weird little films and short films and internet only things and series. I mean, obviously, like What We Do in the Shadows.
Yes. He was on the IT Crowd way back when too. Yeah.
But Toast of London came out, I forget, I think 2017 or 2013. It's a few years old. It's on Netflix right now. I got totally obsessed with it, and he's playing just a failed actor, like a middle-aged actor in London, who's just totally pompous and clueless, and just all of the insane shenanigans that ensue. And it's very, very absurd and kind of silly and just insane and vulgar and cool. And there's always it turns into a musical halfway through, and I love it. I love him. So
underrated singer-songwriter that I don't think most people realize is a singer-songwriter as well.
Yeah, he's made a bunch of records. He's got a psychedelic, I forget if it's instrumental or if it's vocal, but like there's a kind of a psych rock record coming out, I think this summer. He did. Yeah, he's brilliant. I love him.
That's going on the list. Well, man, you've been so generous with your time. Is there anything I missed or anything I didn't plug or ask about that I should be asking about?
I think we covered it.
I think so too, man. So I'll get this up within the next few days, edited
Cool.
and all that. But if there's anything I missed, any links I should have in there, just say the word, send it over, and we'll get it in there.
Can you put in the Bandcamp link?
Done.
Thanks, man. Well,
Will
thank you,
do,
man. I really appreciate, your continued support.
Paltrocast.